Hi everyone, this is Tom with Cove Creek Media, and today we're going to be talking about creating basic lower thirds inside of Adobe Premiere Pro, something that looks a little bit like this right here. Now, if you're looking for lower thirds that are a little bit more creative or design heavy, you're probably going to want to use software like After Effects or even Photoshop with animated layers. But if you're looking for something basic that can be accomplished quickly and simply right within Premiere, then this is the video for you. Okay, so jumping right in, here we are inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. We have a new project and we have our footage here in the timeline to create a new sequence. This can be any footage. Typically with lower thirds, they're very common with interview footage or talking heads, so I just used the footage from the beginning of this video. So our first step is going to be to create the background for the lower third, and for that we're going to use a color matte. So we're going to go up to File, New, Color Matte. Make sure that the aspect ratio and the time base is correct. It should automatically adjust to whatever your sequence settings are. Hit OK, and then you get to select a color. You can make this whatever color you want. Let's just go with the nice blue. Keep in mind that we're going to be adding text on top of this, so if you go with something super bright, it's going to affect the color of the text that you'll have to place on top. We'll just name this lower third background. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and place this into the timeline. We'll adjust our playhead. It's a good rule of thumb to give about 2 or 3 seconds of footage before your lower third comes in. That way your viewer can process what they're seeing and hearing before they have to read something popping up on the screen. So we'll just go a few seconds in and then drag our color matte to the timeline. Now keep in mind this next step. We can apply this. We're doing a color matte today, but this can be any type of layer. This can be a video file or a still image like a JPEG or a PNG. So if you wanted to customize this background and make it more dynamic by using a video or a motion graphic in the background, you can apply these same steps. But to keep it simple, we'll just use the color matte today. So we have this in place, but we can see it's blocking the entire screen. So we're going to have to apply a crop effect. So we'll go to our Effects tab, and we will search for crop and drag that onto our color matte. Pop over back to editing. So we have our crop effect in place. We're going to go ahead and click the color matte to open it up here inside of the source window and click Effects Controls. And we'll see we have our crop in place right here. Now we're going to drag the top and bottom values. We'll bring the top down first. And we'll bring it to right about there. You can eyeball this. We'll bring the bottom up so that it's hanging off of the bottom. Whoops, too much. And about there. And then we'll either adjust the right value or the left value, depending on what side of the screen you want your lower third to come from. The rule of thumb is that you sort of want to place your lower third in the negative space. So if you're doing a talking head interview like this, I'm sort of in the right third, as you can see here. So we want it to come from the left so that it adds, aesthetically, it adds sort of a balance to the image. If your subject is centered, you can always do a floating lower third in the center. You can play around with this, whatever looks best. So we'll drag over from the right side to crop it. Bring it about there. That's a good distance. It's not cutting my head off there, but it's not too far over. It's not too short. Bring it right in about there. So we have our background in place. Now it's kind of flat right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a drop shadow, and this is optional. You don't have to do this. I just find, depending on your background, it helps your background pop a little bit from the footage. So we're going to search drop shadow in our effects window, drag that onto our color mattes. And I apologize, I'm on my laptop here, so I don't have a ton of screen room here for my timeline. We'll open this back up in Effects Controls, and we'll see our drop shadow is in effect, and we have some customization over here. We're going to change the opacity. We're going to make it 100 so that we have a nice hard shadow. You'll see the outline here. We'll give it some distance just so that it's more visible, right about there. And then I'm going to soften it up so it looks more natural, like a real shadow. And so there you can see that adds a little bit of depth to the lower third background. So we have this in place. As we can see, it kind of pops up out of nowhere, and we want it to fly in from the left-hand side. So what we're going to do is keyframe our crop value. So we're going to go to the first frame of our color matte, and we can do this using our arrow keys to find exactly where it starts. Make sure it's selected so that we have our effects controls window open for the color matte. And then next to our right value here in the crop, under the crop, we're going to click this little stopwatch, and that's going to create a keyframe. You'll see that keyframe pop up right here. And now we want to adjust that right value so that, there we go. So our lower third is completely off screen. And then we want to drag our playhead to a spot where we want our lower third to be complete. I think maybe about there is good. So we will adjust this right value again, bring it back down to about where we had it before. And as you can see, it will automatically add another keyframe here. And when you play this back, you'll see that the motion takes place. It comes from off screen and it stops where we want it to. This looks sort of rigid and kind of cheesy because it stopped so suddenly. Make this a little longer. So what we can do is we can go back to our second keyframe. We're going to right click that and select ease in. And what this does is it basically makes like a Bezier curve sort of. It makes it so that you arrive at that final value exponentially instead of linear. So it's not so harsh. It kind of, as you see, it kind of slowly comes to a stop, which just looks a little bit better. Now it is time to add our text. So we'll go up to File, New, Legacy Title. And we'll just use my name. We'll just call it Tom. And this will pop up the title creation window. And we will go ahead, click anywhere in here. Make sure you have the text tool selected and your cursor will pop up. And we will type my name, Tom. Now it's kind of a radical font, so we'll change this to something simple like Arial Black. And we'll use our selection tool to move this over the lower third background so we can see what we're working with. And it looks a little small, so we're going to select that and we'll bump up the font size a little bit. Right about there. Now you can use the selection tool here and manually click and drag to resize this text, but keep in mind that this is going to change the aspect ratio of your font unless you hold Shift down. If you hold Shift down, it will maintain your aspect ratio. But if you don't, you could end up with squeezed text or text that's too long. So just keep that in mind as you adjust. It's an easy way to get the perfect size though, rather than fiddling with the font size up top. So we've got our name in place. You know what? Let's make this a little bit fancier here. Let me expand this window. We're going to add a stroke to the outside of this just to make it pop a little bit more. So we'll scroll down to where we see strokes here. Make sure you have that text selected, and we're going to click Add Outer Strokes. There we go. And it's just black right now. Let's change the color to like a dark blue so it kind of fits a little bit better. There we go. And then we'll bump up the size. There we go. Make it pop a little bit more. Great, so we got our title, and that will show up here, down here in your media browser. These windows are driving me nuts. There we go. And we're gonna drag this on top of our lower third background. I'll drag it out so it's about the same length. And there we have it. Now you'll see that the title, the text is popping up too early. So we'll go ahead and scroll with our cursor or our play bar until right about where our background completes the area where the text is going to show up, and we'll trim that to that spot. And then we'll add, so that it's not just popping up out of nowhere, we'll add a dissolve to this so that it's more smooth. So we'll go back to our effects window, we'll search for cross dissolve or dissolve, and add this to the beginning of our text. So now what we have is the lower third flying in and our name fading up. Now we want to go ahead and trim the end of this so that this isn't up here for so long. When you're adjusting the length of your lower third, you want it to be on screen long enough so that your viewers can read it, but you don't want it to be on there so long that it's distracting. So the best way to do this is play it in real time and just kind of eyeball, okay, this is easy. It's one word, it's one title. It's simple to read, so we'll stop it right about there. Now you can also create text underneath if you wanted to make this smaller and add a title or something in a separate text layer underneath. You can do that as well. So now we have it here. We want to fade it out, so we'll add a cross dissolve to the end of this. And then it disappears. Now you could also go back in and keyframe your crop value from here on so that it goes back off of the screen if you wanted to do that. We'll keep it simple today though. And that is essentially how you achieve a simple lower third inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. So play around with this color mat. Again, this can be whatever background you want, and you can play around with fonts and strokes and all of that inside of your title creator as well to really customize this inside of the software. Go ahead and leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel for more easy and helpful tips for beginning editors.